a human being. That's not a legal agency.
It's not whether we should be condoms and lubes and sex toys. It's arbitrary. And quite frankly, it's crap. A pocket knife like this, that's a felony in the United Kingdom. So, does it really mean that you're going to get lower crime? No, not necessarily by having more gun control laws.
Thank you. I win with my chance. Raise your hand.
Set your ass down over there and debate.
Also, as a way of full disclosure, I am the figurehead advisor for the College Republicans, but don't let that skew your opinion. The debate tonight isn't so much of a debate as an exchange of ideas and positions. So the general format, we will have the topics that have been introduced are affirmative action in Afghanistan, don't ask, don't tell, abortion, Second Amendment, and the ASUCM service budget. The introductory party will give a position statement of each item for 2 minutes, then each other party will follow up in about 5 minutes. Then there will be, after the first 3 topics, a chance for questions from the audience, so we can prepare to participate there as well. And at this point, I'll go ahead and let the various parties introduce themselves, starting at my right with the Democrats. Woo!
You're starting. Oh, sorry. My name is Elson. I'm the Vice President of the Democrats at UC Merced.
My name's Trever. I'm just a freshman, and helping the debate. I'm a Democrat.
Yep.
I'm Ashley Thompson. I'm the treasurer of Democrats Club, and
Chico, Vice President of Libertarians.
My name is Bryant Ziemba. I am the political consultant for the Libertarians.
Mike Fincher, I'm the external vice president for the College Republicans. My name is Darcy, I'm the current president of the College Republicans.
I'm Thompson, a PhD student of archival systems.
Okay, our first topic of the night will be affirmative action. That was one posed by the Libertarians. So they will go ahead and give a position statement in roughly 2 minutes, and then we'll have comments after that. If you just want to project.
Can everyone hear me? Or should I stand? Okay. In general, not all of you may be familiar, I won't be doing this for the whole thing. With the Libertarians in general as a party, we happen to be fairly moderate, so you'll probably hear, since I'll be arguing most of the party line, not my own opinions, a lot of stuff echoed by both Democrats and the Republicans, since we tend to be a middle-of-the-road type of party in general. Affirmative action is actually unconstitutional in every sense of the word. We have a nation of men who are created equal. However, since we like to enforce said equality, our anti-discrimination laws need a boost, and that usually comes in the form of affirmative action. It's mostly apparent, as what we've seen in what we have in our daily lives, in the educational community, in these colleges and whatnot. Or so we're going to have a slight preference based on where you come from, your ethnicity, and whatnot, as well as what your economic stratification may be, those of you who have kind of understanding what I'm talking about. However, it's been coming under fire on a regular basis ever since its inception, of course, because people are saying, of course, it's anti-discrimination. It's favoring those who have been, I suppose, discriminated against in the past. Since our anti-discrimination law, since 1961, we've had issues. Right now, discrimination in any form, whether it's your gender, your orientation, it's what you look like, or it's how tall you are illegal. However, we see that on a regular basis every single day. We'll make an assumption. This basic stereotype happens. Because of this, libertarians in general will argue that affirmative action needs to be kept in general, and actually not even diminished for a minimum, probably until our kids hit college.
Wants to follow up first?
Yeah, okay. I don't believe it's, we don't believe it's unconstitutional, but I agree with the libertarian point of view. Men, or I guess people, are created equal. Ideologically, yes, we are all equal. But to say that something like affirmative action shouldn't exist based on constitutionality is sort of shutting your eyes to the problem of inequality. Realistically, not everybody is afforded equal protection under the law. And unless you find a way of reconciling that, there's always going to be inequality. I mean, let's be honest, there's always going to be inequality anyway.
I mean, we're speaking about equality. It's like equality is a focal point of our nation, and it's a focal point, I think, of the libertarian platform. The thing about our nation is, with the economic situation currently, not all groups are represented fairly because they start with an economic, disparity. And what affirmative action is doing is it's essentially leveling that gap, leveling the playing field for people who don't have the opportunity to have the education that people who are privileged would have. And if we were to abandon affirmative action at this stage of our society, there would be a large number of people who couldn't afford college, and they'd be stuck in poverty or in a poor situation for the rest of their lives. So I would say, for equality, we should maintain affirmative action at least for the time being, and maybe beyond that, as you said.
Republican position?
Our position that it is unconstitutional. The 14th Amendment guarantees equal protection under the law. It does not allow us to discriminate based on race, sex, religion, etc. Affirmative action really does discriminate. Students who may be more qualified for certain programs like school may be rejected simply because of their skin color, which is obviously wrong. And the Supreme Court has also ruled in 2003, they struck down a rule giving certain extra points to kids based on their skin color. They ruled that was unconstitutional. And in 2007, they also ruled that a policy for the school giving preferences, special aid to students based on their skin color. So the Supreme Court is intending to rule that these laws are unconstitutional.
Well, it's not just the unconstitutional element of it, but also the element to say that a human being, based upon skin color, is somehow incapable of achieving on the same level as another human being, is in of itself racist and follows a trend of separate but equal. To say that, for instance, an African American or a Hispanic student is not able to achieve in our society today, but a white student can achieve, is to say that somehow, through either their fault or no fault of their own, that student is disadvantaged. And that is in of itself segregation. It is saying that flatly, this person is not able to achieve unless we give them a leg up, unless we help them. And in a country as such as ours today, I think looking from the diverse group before us today, we know that's not always the case. That's not true. And that's not the prevalent mentality in our society today.
You want to rebuttal questions?
Can I respond real quickly?
Certainly, we have plenty of time.
Affirmative action is meant to correct 288 years of aggressive policy that prevented people of color from accumulating wealth. You're not just going to wake up one morning after, you're not going to live for 288 years, but after 288 years, if you just wake up one morning and you say like, oh, I'm going to be rich today, it doesn't work that way. You'll have been denied an education, you'll have been denied the right to accumulate wealth, own property, and that was aggressive federal policy. It's not just like, oh, I'm lazy, that's not the way it works. Just as, I guess slavery was a way of slavery was an oppressive system. Slavery was an oppressive system, and we needed to compensate that somehow. Just as slavery was deliberate, it was requiring equally deliberate action to rectify and reconcile the effects of it.
affirmative action was to stay in place, and the Libertarians are advocates for unlimited personal freedom. And essentially what we should do is have a affirmative action based only on income and how much they get paid. Because as everybody here knows, an A at a UC and an A at a CSU mean two completely different things. So by standpoint, we should allocate these points by allowing people to get higher education. Because by doing that, you level the level of standard of living within this country. And by doing so, that is allocating more freedom to that person by limiting them to a 9-to-5 job than they would have had otherwise if they had not gone to college.
Yeah, I was just pointing out that we already basically distribute financial aid on an economic basis. We were opposing the idea of giving preferences in admission or whatnot to based on someone's race. And actually, I'll read you a quote from Clarence Thomas, who is he's an African American who sits on the Supreme Court as a justice. And he also said that I graduated from one of America's top law schools, but racial preferences has robbed me of my achievement of this true value. It bore the taint of racial preferences.
To the people, into a system of progressive into the development of the free political institutions. C, to further international peace and security. D, to promote constructive measures of development. And E, to transmit, regulate Secretary General. It doesn't really matter. That one, this is reporting back to the U.S. Secretary. But that doesn't really matter. What matters is that we stay there and we secure the area. If we do, the Taliban and Al-Qaeda are 2-0 against superpowers if we bail out. They win the propaganda war, and they'll franchise out to other countries. We must stay, and this is a fight we must win. Unlike Iraq, which was unnecessary, this fight was necessary. 9/11, I hate to reiterate the Republican standpoint, but 9/11, come on guys, we were attacked. And that gave us appropriations to go in under Jus Code against the preparatory norm under international law, because our sovereignty was violated by attacks from abroad. So, therefore, we need to stay the course, we need to finish it up, and at the same time, we need to set timetables and be fiscally responsible. Because if we're not, the economy of the way that it is going to drain furthermore. And if it drains furthermore, we're going to be more in debt than China, and that's going to create a whole mess of problems here in the home front.
Rebuttal, Republican. All right. You want me to stand up or?
Yeah.
All right. I was just point out, we weren't the world police back in '89, especially in regards to Afghanistan, more as a strategic ally, especially with countries like Somalia. And our withdrawal left those regions and countries in ruins, which is why they're in the situation they are today. Our failure to stay there and provide support, as Bryant points out, for Afghanistan is why we have a problem if we did leave. We must stay. What we're doing now is Stanley McChrystal, the General of Security Forces Afghanistan, requested 80,000 troops. Obama approved 50,000 troops to go there. What they're doing is they're called governance in a box. They'll control a city, an area, a region with certain amounts of troops, stabilize that region with violence, eradicate Al-Qaeda, Taliban, any other terrorist forces, prop up the local governments, local militaries, and like what we did to Iraq, hand it over to the other governments, withdraw to another area until we have the other country, or the whole rest of the country stabilized. And now a lot of this also relies on policy towards Pakistan right now. Right now they're having a large war with themselves against the Taliban. And right now a scary thing for us in Afghanistan is that the Pakistanis are doing deals with the Taliban, peace efforts, to have them control certain regions and to end the violence. And that's not acceptable for us right now, because if the Taliban are allowed a safe haven right over the border of Pakistan, no matter what we do, we can't prevent them from coming back. It's not as easy as build a wall to prevent Taliban from going out. This is some of the highest altitudes our military forces have fought in since World War II. Mountainous terrain. It's like fighting in the Rockies. It would just be a complete disaster. And on the UN part, I really don't care for the UN. They don't do anything effectively. You see, they help Saddam, blood for oil, blah, 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 all this stuff. They do a real good job peacekeeping in Africa. They don't. And they also want to control the U.S. through their international laws.
Okay.
Democrats.
For the most part, I don't know about the UN thing. I mean, law is law. But for the most part, I think we agree pretty much on Afghanistan. One thing though is we were definitely the world police in the 80s. We were the world police ever since at the end of World War II when we were like the last industrialized country left.
And just point out some names here. Were we strategic allies in Vietnam? I mean, were we strategic allies in Gulf War? That's a fancy name for running in, taking over a country temporarily and blowing the shit out of locals. I mean, that's what we have done in those wars, and probably countless others that weren't publicized in that time. So.
As far as the international system placing constraints on the United States, that's bogus because there's numerous occasions where we ignored the UN. But the point is that we've obeyed UN jurisdiction, we've obeyed UN law up until this point. And not to mention, I do believe at the end of W2, it's the United States that did establish the UN. So something that we established should be kind of follow it. And not to mention, Pakistan is not the enemy. Pakistan is nowhere near the enemy. The enemy is a non-governmental entity, which is a group of people that are bouncing back between borders. The Pakistani government is issuing these secret deals with the Taliban in order to hold peace because they don't have the military forces to go in there and we cannot go violate their sovereignty at the same time. So that's something we just have to deal with and work around. And as far as being the world police, we were the world police. Soviet Union did not fall until the 90s, until 1990. So we were the world police. We had to put out Vietnam, Somalia, and we still take up this role. 93, Somalia, Bosnia, Kosovo, Iraq. We are the world police, and as a libertarian standpoint, we're okay with abiding by these international jurisdictions because we're for the pullback, we're for the rollback. We are for the United States limiting its outer powers and essentially focusing on ourselves. So, that's all I have to say.
Withdrawing from Afghanistan and ignoring us.
Not talking about Afghanistan.
Threats is what led to 9/11. So if we withdraw from the world, yeah, that's not a good idea. I never said Pakistan was the enemy. I said I expressed concerns about the way the government is handling this war on terror or war against the Taliban. Obviously, the Taliban and Al-Qaeda is the enemy there, and we need to work with the Pakistan government. There are bordering nations that we need to work with in order to control this problem. Berlin Wall fell in 1989. Soviets started withdrawing everywhere else. Countries in South Africa, not South Africa, but southern regions of Africa. Countries like Eritrea, they began pulling back. So there was a transitionary period. We weren't sure whether or not we were the world police. We weren't at that stage in time. We were allies funding them. We weren't policing the world yet. That happened later in the 90s.
Briefly do a minute and then move on.
I think basically the flaw there is that we assume that we should try to correct action through military action. It's sort of like, oh, well, we messed something up, let's go in there and invade and solve all the problems. I mean, that's maybe how some things could be resolved, but I think if we focus on like a scale pullback, which we are, and we will be, I think we're supposed to reduce troop levels dramatically by 2011. Okay, thank you so much. I think that that's a good thing. To not be a military presence, to have a face other than the face of war is a good thing.
I just tack on to that. I mean that's great for Iraq being out there by 2011, December 31st. The fact of the matter is we need to stay in Afghanistan. And we need to do whatever we need to do within legal realms. I'm not talking about going into northern Pakistan and taking off the thing out there, because that'd be Cambodia all over again in the Vietnam War. We cannot do that. But what we can do is increase funding for schools, infrastructure, church, mosques, any basic infrastructure and the necessities of the people. That's how we're going to win the hearts and minds, and that's how we're going to win. This victory in Afghanistan is going to look like victory in Iraq. By building these infrastructures, winning over the people. You don't win over people by shooting at them. You win them over by giving them incentives, the carrot and the stick. So what I would assume Fincher's advocating is more guns, more troops, more bombs, or kill anyone. You don't win that way. Everybody knows you don't win that way. You have to win the hearts and minds of the people. When you do that, you're spending money on the basic necessities.
Hopefully you have a question in the audience. Right now we are at time for our third topic of the first half, after which we will then open up the questions, and I'm sure it will be big fun. The third topic was proposed by the Democrats. They will get to introduce. The topic is don't ask, don't tell.
All right, I'm actually not sure if I'm supposed to be addressing this, but I'm just going to go for it. So anyway, as many of you may be aware, cycling around now is the idea that we should repeal the don't ask, don't tell policy in favor of an open military. And what this is me that gay people who are in the military can now be open about it. It's pretty straightforward. It's been this idea has been supported by Secretary of, anyway, big people. The point, I think we should get to the logistics of it. Democrats support this idea because we need, first of all, we need more troops. We can't afford alienating any portion of our society who's willing to serve in combat. And the don't ask, don't tell policy, while it allowed gays in the military, it neglected their fundamental rights to be who they are. And so I don't see any problem with this. I actually don't see what the debate's going to be, because I don't think there's any way that you could really be opposed to it. Gays deserve as much rights as anyone else. It's part of, being a citizen of a free country. And I mean, let's assume that you don't want, for a minute, let's just think about the counter arguments. Let's assume you don't want gays in the military. The only reason I can think of is because you're homophobic. I mean, there's nothing else that comes to mind. I mean, if that is the case, I mean, I just don't see there being a good argument for it. I mean, with the don't ask, don't tell policy, gays are already in the military anyway. So the only thing that changes now, I guess it's going to sound crass, but the fact that you know who's gay. I mean, that's the only difference. It shouldn't change anything in effect. So there shouldn't be any opposition to this. We should change the military policy. That's that.
You guys want to go first?
Yes.
Sure.
The no ask, don't tell policy is actually just the newest face on what we've had since before our inception of the country and having the military itself. Why aren't women allowed in the military? They mentioned that women, of course, being in disguise, not saying who they were, being what they were supposed to be, in which case, which was a young man. Then that got revealed, women are now allowed. We had segregation in our units for the longest time. A black man and a white man were not allowed to serve in the same units, of course. The reason why all these things have been in place, the national health policy and whatnot, women, whatever flavor of person you happen to be, is that people talk about the strength of our military as being a cohesive unit. Each one having their own theme. Each person's diversity contributing to the common whole. One person's good at one thing, one person's good at the next. Basically, it's the old imperial idea, a big group of specialists. That is our strength. You can't have a group of drones. Our strength is that each unit is able to ideally function independently and whatnot. Different viewpoints come from many different types of things. What we were talking about earlier, economic status, who you are as your culture. In this case, we have to be in the privacy of your home. Because of the national health policy, all of these laws in place, we already had people who were bucking the trend, more or less. Girls in disguise, boy, even though you didn't have citizenship at the time, you had black people serving, more than 100 years ago in the military and whatnot. Just because they're already in it doesn't mean it's not a wrong policy. It was a problem at the beginning that it should be right now. There's really nothing to standing it up right now except the fact that it has popular vote at the time.
Well, first, I just like to say that I noticed the Democrat pattern here. First, initially on affirmative action, it's you're racist if you oppose it. Now it's you're homophobic if you oppose don't ask, or if you're for don't ask, don't tell. Noticing a bit of a pattern here. But anyways, the main point here is with don't ask, don't tell. Whether you agree with it, whether you disagree with it, I'm sure many of you here know people that are in the military, and the opinions are diverse across all the members of the military. We have former Joint Chiefs of Staff that say yes, don't ask, don't tell. Other ones say no more don't ask, don't tell. You have both gay generals and both straight generals and all across the spectrum that are sitting there saying yes and no on this. It is a very divisive topic, but the main thing here that has been lost is that on a battlefield, these men who are fighting alongside each other have no business in knowing, or even caring for that matter, about what another man's sexual orientation is, or another woman's sexual orientation is, or what their preferences are. What it comes down to is the life of that person that's next to you. They're a human being. You are in combat. There is nothing at all to do with that regarding your sexual orientation. The military is not a place to advance a gay agenda, or a straight agenda, or a white agenda, or a black agenda. It is a place that is designed to protect the freest country in this world, period. So the orientation of a human being, sexual orientation of a human being has no business in the military. Whether it be through don't ask, don't tell, or it be through another means, it should not be in the forefront. It's not something that needs to be known. It's not an issue in the military. It should not be an issue in the military. What it should be is something that's left out of the military. And if you want to be gay and be in the military, fine, fair enough, but it's something that doesn't need to be in the forefront, just like if you want to be straight and be in the military, that doesn't need to be in the forefront. But second, I want to know who your sources were, by the way, that you're talking about with these really big people that you know about. I mean, just whenever you get the chance, go through them.
When chief of staff was one of the people who was in support of the open
Rebuttal from the Libertarians. Well, we're best friends.
Basically, I just had issue with one of the things you were saying, sir. Namely that the person, by the unit we were talking about, you get a cohesive unit, and that the person next to you is the most important thing on the battlefield. Our military units aren't just something to parade out. They are something that is very efficient, and something that is very eminently practical, or being one of the most practical and physical things you can possibly do. That was one of the reasons why we had issues with multiracial units and multi-gender units. Will you save the person next to you if they're different from you? Exactly how much do we minimize the differences or make them still worth it to you enough to drive them off the battlefield if the worst happens? At what point if a difference is allowable? In this case, it's an invisible difference, more or less, or sexual orientation. Does that difficulty, the fact that difficulty does also extend to multi-gender and multiracial units, in your opinion?
Yes. The first thing I'd like to bring up is, I'm sorry for being so lax in my facts. I'll mention some people now who are pro-open military. Colin Powell, he's pro-open military. I mentioned him before in passing. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mike Wolin, is for open military, and many more actual soldiers in combat. But I'd like to address what I think is a flaw in logic on part of the Republican argument. And that is that it's not a sectoral issue. And I would agree that war is not a sectoral issue, and I think that it shouldn't matter whether your brother in arms is gay, straight, whatever. But on that same note, there are people. I should say that straight people are out, so to speak. I mean, you're socially acceptable to be straight in the military, and they are all recognized as straight people. It is assumed you are straight. So I think that there's already a bias in that direction. And so by introducing homosexuals as being open, you're not suddenly making the military a section. You're actually leveling the field. And that no.
Well, I think, necessarily saying that it should be something that you have to discuss in the military, I'm not really sure. I think that's something that should be left open to the option of the soldier to discuss. It doesn't need to be, I don't really see why when we work in a workplace today, when I go up to introduce somebody, go, hi, my name is Tom, I'm straight. I don't think people do that. I don't think people want to walk up and go, hello, my name is such and such, I'm gay. I don't think they want to do that. It's your personal preference. It's what you wish to do between two consensual adults in a bedroom. And we have no problem with that. But it's something that doesn't need to be a forefront issue on the battlefield. I don't see where that comes in.
This is Greg. Is it okay if I rebuttal first?
Oh.
Sure, go ahead there. We'll get here. I will open the first three up. All right. I'd like to say that if you are gay and you are on the job, you come out, you're not fired for being gay in most cases. If you are gay in the military, you are oftentimes discharged dishonorably. There's been over 30,000 cases during the course of the Iraq War of people being discharged for being gay. This is an issue if that's the case. Sure, you don't have to talk about your sexuality, but when it affects your ability to participate in something, that's a totally different issue. And I think what repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell and having open military is about allowing these people to be who they are and not be discharged for it.
Yeah, if you come out and say you're gay in the military, you are discharged. And that is discriminatory no matter how you cut it. No matter how you look at it, it's discriminatory because you're basing it on sexual orientation. And thus, you're separating those people. Bullshit, excuse the language. Pursuit of happiness. If the person who's gay in the United States has that right to go into the military and to serve. And not to mention, doesn't it also say in the Constitution, gentlemen, that all men are created equal under God? Doesn't it say that? It says that completely. Thus, that transcends into, hey, I have a right to serve, I'm gay, I'm here, I'm queer. He said, I don't care if they're straight, I just care if they can shoot straight.
Your statistics incorrect. Just real quick, I have a Boston Globe article here dated May 19, 2009. A steady number of troops are being discharged from the U.S. military for being gay, according to the latest Pentagon statistics, which show that 619 troops were kicked out last year in the controversial Don't Ask, Don't Tell. That is not 30,000 troops. In the Iraq War,
That's last year.
600
I agree.
last year.
And it doesn't matter, you're supposed to discriminate.
That's not 30,000.
Our notes actually say 13,000. That's one mistake.
Oh, okay, it's only 30,000.
We could quibble over numbers, or we could open up to questions. So keep in mind the three topics we've covered up thus far are affirmative action, Afghanistan, and Don't Ask, Don't Tell. If you have questions for any of the parties from the floor, please raise your hand. Back corner, right.
If sexual orientation, the argument we're talking about, sexual orientation does not belong in the military, then should heterosexuals hide their sexuality, just as homosexuals are forced to hide their sexuality in the military? What about the B-52 pinups during World War II? Would those types of things no longer be allowed? I mean, whether or not we like it, sexuality will come up when everyone's in the barracks and they're getting love letters from home. These are unavoidable things. These are human things. I mean, shouldn't heterosexuals have to hide their sexuality?
And that's right to you guys. I don't think it should be an issue, and I really do have a problem with this being decided by Congress. If the military does, thank you, Joe. If the military does allow this as a policy, I think it should be up to them to decide who's fighting, not the people who sit in Congress and don't fight themselves. And I'd like to address a few other issues, if I will, relating to it. Some instances the military does have to discriminate, for instance, based off of height, body build, because there are jobs to do in the military that require the person to have strength. That's not an issue. That's not an issue with that, but that is an issue that is brought up with women serving in the military or in combat roles.
What about Israel?
Israel's military is a lot different. Everyone is required to fight because they have so few people. If Israel was only open to straight males, they wouldn't have as many people as they do. They need everyone to fight. Why? Because they have the rest of the Middle East ready to attack them at any moment. It's a country that's literally up against the wall and could be attacked any day. They're fighting for their lives.
You're saying the acceptance in the military has to do with need rather than ethics.
In that case, it's due to needs.
So we can apply all sorts of different ethical things just because we have plenty of straight men.
Well, I'm not saying it's an ethical issue. It's up to the military to decide what their needs are. I mean, obviously, yes, people should be able to serve in the military. It's not their right, granted by the Constitution, too. It's a privilege to serve in the military. Do I think certain groups like homosexuals should be denied service in the military? No, it's up for the military to decide who they allow to fight.
Another question back here, and then we'll go back around.
Directed towards the Republicans. So my understanding of your point is sexual orientation shouldn't matter, right? Shouldn't matter. Shouldn't be brought up at all. Correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Why was Lieutenant Dan Joy dishonorably discharged?
I have no idea.
Come on, guys.
Why don't you ask Dennis Cardoza and the Democrats who control Congress and the presidency right now why they have
I'm
not
asking you guys.
repealed it?
I'm asking you.
We're not the ones who are
the issue is
responsible for
because-
Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Don't Ask, Don't Tell was implemented under Bill Clinton in a Democratic Congress. And we still have Don't Ask, Don't Tell under a Democratic president, a Democratic Congress. Now, it's not us who's responsible for it. We didn't implement it. We didn't sit there and prevent it being repealed.
Your point
That's a
was
Democrat.
it shouldn't matter.
It shouldn't matter, but right now it's a congressional statute, so there's nothing that can happen until it is repealed. So yes, it shouldn't matter. Is it law? Yes, and that's the unfortunate part.
And that's why Lieutenant Dan Joy was dishonorably
Yes,
discharged.
Yes,
well, ask the
that's
Democrats
because it
why
is
he
law,
was.
so
We're not the ones in power.
They shouldn't be flaunting their sexuality in the first place. That's
Well,
not really what it's about.
I like your word.
Well, I hope we would all agree that's wrong to have to deny a fundamental part of the I hope we can all agree on that. It sounds like something that is a bad thing. You can say, oh, yeah, you can die for us, but you can't tell us who you really are. You gotta hide that, otherwise contributions account for nothing. This is really cool to say.
A question in the back of the room, too.
Mr. Fincher, is it my understanding that you're advocating that we abdicate civilian control of the military to let them decide their own policies?
I'm advocating that the Joint Chiefs of Staff and other military officers decide the military policy.
I'm sorry, but the U.S. Constitution clearly spells out that the military in this country is firmly under the control of civilians, and it is the job of the civilians, the government, to set policy for the military, not for the military to make policy for itself.
But should it be Congress developing this from the beginning? No, it should be heavily reliant upon military recommendation.
You're wrong. As a military, I don't care how you want to slice it, it is the job. And yes, has Congress fallen down on this issue? I will firmly agree. To state that it's the Democrats who are the problem here, it was, in fact, was a lie in 1992 and politically aware and voting, and it voted in my second presidential election, and it was clearly the Republicans who were the sticking point in the policy of admitting gays to serve openly.
We have another question in the back of the room, and then we'll move that over to the front.
This is a question about Afghanistan, actually. You guys, this is for the Democrats. You guys were talking about how the end goal in Afghanistan is for the Afghans to have everything we had, which I'm taking to be.
No, we didn't say that. No,
You didn't?
Okay. We didn't even mention Reconstruction. That was mostly outlined by the other two parties.
You then. Whoever said that. So, that's your guys' position. Okay? Is that correct? Okay. So, do you believe that the United States government would support an Afghani government who democratically elected a president who did not want to be an ally of the United States?
I'm under this administration, possibly. I don't think it's wise for us to allow that to happen, honestly.
So you do not believe that if democracy comes up with an option that is not pro-US, that democracy should not be allowed?
No.
You just said that. You just said that.
It's not smart. It will allow, and if that does happen, which is most likely what's going to happen, we should not remain there. We should pull all funding immediately and withdraw. Because if they think they can handle their country on their own, they can. And that's a situation that we are also seeing in Iraq right now. They are trying to distance themselves with us in better relations elsewhere in the Middle East, which is probably going to be a problem with our relations in the future. But that's the beauty of democracy. We can help them set up infrastructure. If they want to side with someone else later on, they can. But if they decide to attack the United States, we'll go back in and destroy them.
Questions up here, so Jake. Now, sorry, Carlson, this might seem like a shameful like towards getting your age or anything. Given that the United States did in fact act outside of Giuseppe by displacing and liberating in Panama and would not have having first been attacked, and then also given that in Iraq the United States, due to faulty or suspected to be fabricated CIA intelligence, the United States again violated Giuseppe by invading without justified provocation. My question is, what is your definition of world peace?
I think it's directed to the Republic.
Yeah.
You want to take that? You can have a rereading of the question too.
Yeah, that was a good preface there. A defined threat, a defined aggressor against the United States must take action to serve its best interest, period.
So whenever the United States' best interest is at stake, that basically gives them the ability to invade or do whatever actions they see fit.
So the United States should act against its own interest?
No, should act for its own interest in any measure possible. Is that what you're arguing?
Well, if it means the safety and security of the United States, then yes.
Should we interject and ask a question as well, just for clarification?
Sure.
What is the definition of the United States? Are we talking about the overall citizenry or the...
Well, according to Barack Obama, it's 57 states, but it's the 50 states of the United States.
What are the
You know, those states, there's one up north, there's one over the west, and there's a bunch in there with like United States citizens in them.
What are the other 7 states?
Huh?
What are the other 7 states?
Well, I don't know. Obama said he's been to 57 states. 2 of them he hasn't had a chance to go yet. To that, I don't know what they are.
I guess the point I was trying to make was...
I think you watched that Thompson account.
That's an actual Obama quote.
No, see, yeah, I actually read about this stuff too. So
let's compare the numbers.
Can you read off that list, please? Where the United States intervened?
Well, I mean, just give me the excerpt. Grenada, Panama, and Iraq.
Real threats, guys. Another question from the floor. What's your objective definition of terrorist?
A terrorist is anyone who uses violence and unconventional means to terrorize people or manipulate people into doing something. In this instance, it is the Taliban.
But wait, would you call the U.S. a terrorist country?
No, because we don't use unconventional means to. We don't strap people with bombs and go into civilian neighborhoods and blow them up.
We definitely do.
We definitely do.
I want you to know for the United States military, they specifically targeted a market to kill civilians, specifically to kill women and children. When does the United States military use small children, elderly people, females, and the disabled as body shields, as body armor? When does the United States use that? I want to know this.
If we were invaded,
Did you answer the question?
No. There's no conjecture. There's no conjecture. I asked you a simple question. Yes or no? Glenn.
What?
Lotion.
I think.
Any other questions from the floor?
Yeah. I had a question for the Libertarians. It had something to do with the Afghanistan thing. And from what I can recall, the strategy these guys said is that we need to end this war in Afghanistan by winning the hearts and minds of people by using money to help build their schools and their infrastructure. Now, my question is, given the US's weakened state of the economy, can the US really afford that right now? And shouldn't that money be used first to help the American people, like the homeless, in these economic times before we go out to send in the form of foreign aid and these kind of things?
This is directed to all of us. First off, to say the last part of your question again, one more time.
The last part of the question? Before you send out the money to help other people, shouldn't that money be first used to take care of the American people?
Okay. The reason why it shouldn't, and here's the only reason why, is because if we do a direct pullout in terms of redirect funds back to the American people, that gives the Taliban and Al-Qaeda the winning edge over the propaganda war, a war that we cannot lose. Because it's the propaganda war that's keeping them there in Afghanistan, isolated certain Islamic countries. So if we lose that war, they will spread. And then therefore the possibility of another attack will be imminent. Not to mention that it will put fire under the behinds and create a civil war and essentially kill off anybody that was dumb enough to believe in us while we were there. That would actually were there to help. So if we pull out, then you're going to kill those people. You're going to create a power vacuum. And essentially, you're going to drive the country into a civil war. That is why the money should not be reallocated back home. And first off, like the United States, the current economy is a problem. We are seeing a slight upturn within the economy, thanks to the stimulus bill and whatnot. So essentially, if we simply brought everybody out of Iraq by 2011, December 31st, bring them home, the redeployment. We should have enough financial stamina to muster out another 3 years in Afghanistan to secure it. And essentially, once we secure it, the government, the central government in Kabul, should be able to spread out to the other regions and other provinces within Afghanistan to set up the infrastructure, the running water, the electricity, and everything else. By that time, that should be sufficient, ample amount of time. And so by that time, we can pull out, and then we can work on rolling down the military and reallocating funds back to the American people.
Sorry. In the simplest manner, what you were discussing, throwing good, is not necessarily throwing good money after bad. All the expense of rebuilding infrastructure that has been destroyed over the course of the last several years. In the most simplest manner, the most expensive thing a nation can do is to be in a war, whether you're beginning or you're continuing. It is one of the most expensive things that our country is involved in. The sooner it's over, by whatever means necessary, the sooner that financial burden is off of us. I imagine that rebuilding, if you build the buildings, however many there happen to be, and I do not have those numbers for whoever
Well, it's not just
is
buildings, it's
actually
also highways.
and everything else necessary, the sooner we have the much bigger continual expense over with. You know, do you keep on fixing the old car, or do you just decide to just build a new one, more or less? It's a trade-off.
I guess I just have to say I don't think we can afford to withdraw from Iraq. In fewer words than what they said. We can't. I mean, if we pull out now, as much as I dislike war and I wish we were not involved in Afghanistan, if we were to pull out now, it would cause much more infrastructure problems in that country. It'd be irresponsible of us, and I think we have to face the facts that it would cause a lot of dislike towards the U.S. and probably possibly more terrorism. So we have to stay for those reasons. And I'm not for indefinite war. I mean, we got to find a way, and I think most Democrats agree with me to get out of there quickly. And we got to solve the problems and be efficient. And yes, there are economic problems at home. But we have a lot on our plate, but we have to deal with all of it. So we cannot afford to pull out. That's pretty much it.
I think we're in halfway. and I'll let you ask questions about the first half and the second half too. But, we have to deal with abortion, which I'm sure everybody will agree on. The Second Amendment is pretty much a done deal. We'll go right through that. And then talk about the ASUCM Budget. We'll go ahead and try to limit initial comments and rebuttal from the parties, and at the end we can build in more time for you because I think that's more entertaining for me. So our first topic of the second half of the debate is on abortion. That was proposed by the Libertarians, and so today we'll have the first few minutes.
There's a very famous and much reviled quote, I'm sure all of you have heard, is that abortion should be safe and rare. Paraphrase, that was actually one of the Clintons who said that. I'm not going to tackle how much the health issue and whatnot, how much of a danger it is or not to a woman's body. However, the fact that the legalization is probably our best bet on a strictly safety level. Ethics, I'll let my compatriot attack to some degree since that is his specialty. But on a strictly health level, I apologize. Having anything against the law makes that activity a little more dangerous. I don't care what it happens to be, whether you have a deep level strawberry bubblegum, marijuana, or in this case, terminating a pregnancy. If you make it illegal, it makes it a little more difficult to procure. There are methods to do it, of course, of all of those things, strawberry bubblegum notwithstanding. However, by making it such a thing that is difficult to get, you have people who are put in a position, and most of the time, someone who is trying to find an abortion is in a very extreme and awkward situation to begin with. By making their lives more difficult at that point, you're making a situation that much more dangerous. Therefore, I will put forth Libertarians who support the legalization of abortion in most cases.
Okay, essentially, Supreme Court, law of the land, Roe v. Wade, it's legal. And I'm not here to discuss my own personal morals and ethics. I'm up here to discuss the morals and ethics that the law has laid down in the country. In the United States Supreme Court, Congress, Senate have laid down. And essentially, it says that abortion is legal. America's built on opportunities, and I'm not saying abortion is an opportunity. Let's clarify. But everybody should have the right to choose. Everybody should have the right to choose.
Can I throw it back?
Oh, no.
Go right ahead. First of all, the Supreme Court did say that slavery was legal as well, so sometimes they do make the wrong decision. And as far as Libertarians, I believe you guys advocate personal responsibility. It's a woman's choice to go off and do whatever she may do to get pregnant. So at that point, it becomes her responsibility to keep the child. It's not her body. Genetically speaking, the baby inside has a different DNA than the mom. It's not her body. Her say over her body ends at the womb. And as far as safe as well, even in abortion clinics like Planned Parenthood, who openly accept money to abort specifically minority babies, there's evidence that abortion is linked to breast cancer, and there are a lot of psychological problems with allowing a mom to be aborted a child. And on final point, on the Roe v. Wade, the her name was Norma McCorvey. She's actually pro-life now. I can read her statement if you'd like. Please. From her book, she says, "I was sitting in OR's offices when I noticed a fetal development poster. The progression was so obvious, the eyes were so sweet, it hurt my heart just looking at them. I ran outside and finally it dawned on me. Norma, I said to myself, that's right. I had worked with my pregnant woman for years. I had been through the pregnancies and delivered myself. I should have known. Yet something in that poster made me lose my breath. I kept seeing the picture of the tiny 10-week-old embryo, and I said to myself, that's a baby. It's as if it
blinders just fell off my eyes and I suddenly understood the truth. That's a baby. And I can go on and on and on. But she wrote a book about it. She's now pro-life. She recognized her wrongdoing. That baby that you're aborting, that you're sticking up scissors and chopping into pieces and sucking it out with a tube, that's a life. And that's not the mom. It has different DNA than her. So that's our position.
Yeah,
Wow. That was a tasteless emotional appeal, which is a textbook example of fallacy. Additionally, I don't think it's fair to say that abortion should be outlawed across the board. I mean, what about circumstances of rape? If a woman was raped, I mean, that's not her choice. She's not like, oh, I'm gonna get raped today. Yeah, it doesn't happen that way. Yeah, it doesn't happen that way. What about cases of like ectopic pregnancies where both the fetus or the child, what I call it, that, and the mother will die unless the fetus is aborted? I mean, if we're not gonna say like, oh, we can't have abortion altogether, we need to replace abortion. Please,
and moreover, I think the Libertarians mentioned this momentarily. People will find a way if there's not a legal means. Look at drugs, a prime example of this. If you outlaw abortion, you're allowing for these, illegal and dangerous, potentially dangerous operations to occur, in basements with makeshift objects. We've all heard of coat hanger abortions before. I mean, you're risking people's lives, and I think that we have to realize that regardless of what a religious group or otherwise says, people will always have their own opinions and act on those. So we cannot stop people from having abortions as much as we can control everyone and stop them from smoking weed. I mean, so I say that we should legalize it, keep it legal, and legalize what's not legal now. And one more thing, you guys mentioned that the mother doesn't have the right to abort her child. I'm looking for a response, so I'm going to give you one. They said that, right? I'd like to bring up a crass, not metaphor, but comparison. There's an argument that goes around that it's not the right of the mother to abort her child because potential life is life in itself. To kill potential life is to murder. And I'd argue that every time the guy masturbates, he's a mass murderer. So really, can we really, follow through this argument logically? It doesn't make sense.
All right. Yeah. First of all, this is an ethical issue, so it largely comes down to arguments of emotion. And so, but I did say that I can cite you some sources too, that if you'd like, that link breast cancer to abortion. Also, you guys said that you guys want stats. You guys said that most of these abortions, if not legalized, would be in makeshift places.
Wait, if this is an emotional thing, why are you giving us stats?
Because you guys want them. So 10%. Okay, according to Planned Parenthood, 10% of these makeshift abortions are the ones produced by these people who have no idea what they're doing. 90% are produced by physicians doing them. This is what?
Are you saying that they're minorities and stupid? Because that's what you said with the Planned Parenthood.
No, I said that Planned Parenthood, 90% of them, according to them, is these makeshift abortions you guys are referring to, like they sound creepy in the basement, are actually produced, done by physicians. So
that's, by the way, textbook definition. That's what we call red herring when you say that.
Red herring. Yeah. Also, 1% of abortions are result of rapes. That means 99% of abortions are incest. And incest. So 1%. That's a fact from the New York Times. Those liberals, because I know you guys don't like to hear from the Heritage Foundation or any of that. Fox News, like you said earlier. So that's 1%. So that means 99% of these abortions are as a result of someone's actions, and they should take responsibility for those actions. And that is a life. I don't know if you guys are going to want to acknowledge that. That's a life. It's separate from the mom. That has nothing to do with their body. That's a complete different human being. And wherever it resides, whether it's in the womb or outside the womb, it has to reside. Okay, so are you gay? Are you gay?
Am I gay?
Are you gay?
Whoa.
Because then you can talk about gay marriage or any of that crap because you're not gay. You know what I'm saying? Are you gay? You can talk about the military because you're in the military. That's a fallacy. Another argument that you guys are pointing out. Regardless of where the baby lies, whether it's resides in the mom's womb or elsewhere, whatever, that baby is guaranteed constitutional rights. It has the right to life. It has the right to pursue that.
It's homosexual again, like.
Okay, so then you can't talk about the military. Now Democrats can talk to the military because none of you guys are in the military.
I'm a Christian. Right here, their arguments are appealing to a religious belief. No. A religious belief, saying that this is a life, that is murder. That appeals to a religious argument. The fact is that the libertarians, yes, we are for self-responsibility, but at the same time, we're not advocating sticking a huge pair of pliers and some scissors up there to cut the thing out. No, that's second trimester and third trimester. No, we're advocating.
Actually, well, according to the Mayo Clinic, conception pretty much starts. I'm sorry, life starts at the beginning.
This is your rebuttal.
According to the Mayo.
Give us a break. We got like half an hour of questions, 15 minutes of questions.
The fact is the matter that women in this country have a choice. And women have a choice. Trimester, there's so much that can happen. There's so much that can happen to that little clump of cells. It could be a miscarriage. The woman could abort it herself by drinking too much or smoking too much cigarettes. Anything can happen to it. That's not a life. A cluster of cells is not a life.
You are a cluster of cells.
Okay, can we First off, you mentioned rape is the case we should allow for abortions, and I agree with that. I think the party agrees with that. But moreover, I think there should be abortions in other circumstances. I mean, what is a child raised in an environment that's hostile towards it? I mean, there's plenty of instances where a mother or father is not capable of raising a child, either because they have some sort of economic issue, maybe even a emotional issue. I mean, there's so much that needs to be done in order to raise somebody. And if they can't provide that, then I think it's also a legitimate reason for abortion. I think we want citizens to be part of our country who were wanted when they were born, who had all the faculty they needed to succeed. And a lot of people who have abortions do so because they can't provide those things. And then I think it's also hypocritical of Republicans to be pro-life and then be warmongers. And I think that we need to make a choice. Are you for the fetus as a person, and when they grow up, when they're adults, suddenly we use them as cannon fodder? Because I mean, I just think that's slightly hypocritical. So if you're going to be pro-life, go all the way.
Well, just real quick about the whole warmonger thing. World War I, II, Vietnam. Yeah, those are all kind of major wars that things really got ugly. Yeah, those are all started by Democrats. Not. Yeah. But anyways, so just to kind of figure this out, was it Ronald Reagan once said that all the people that are for abortion, oddly enough, have already been born. So I find it interesting that we're going to sit here and you're going to talk about equality and fairness and treating everybody all the same. You're for affirmative action, you're for or against don't ask, don't tell, all these different things. But what I find the most interesting part about that is you're not for a child's right to be born, to have life. You're not less than 10% of all pregnancies end in a biological abortion, where the body actually miscarriages. Otherwise, but for the actions of the mother, that thing, as you would like to identify it as, would have become a human being, living, talking human being, just like you and me, and would have lived a fruitful life, hopefully. And there's this little thing called adoption.
I think we pretty much are. Basically, we do go back and forth on this. I think what's important to note is that, we're not saying like abortion is cool. It's all fair game. Like no matter how far into whatever trimester the fetus is, it's okay just to whack it. We're not saying that. Up to a certain point, a fetus, it's going to sound horrible. Please forgive me. It's parasitic. It can't survive on its own. What point is that? It requires a host. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. Okay. I believe it's first trimester.
Just real quick, I'm sorry, I'll let you finish your statement, but here's a question. When a person goes into care, assisted care, when they are older, are they not, could you not say that they're, parasitic and that, maybe we should just let them die? That's not what you don't want to take care of them?
The difference there is that they were at least once a rational human being. That was granted legal agency. A fetus is not granted legal agency.
Was that a fetus not
granted legal agency?
It's a human being.
That's not granted legal agency.
So because it can't it's not a human being. Because it can't.
Wow, look at that. We're out of time. The Second Amendment is the next topic. For those of you not up on your amendments, that's the right to keep and bear arms. That was proposed by the Republicans. I'll go ahead and introduce all of them.
The Second Amendment defines such as a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Read that last part again. There's a prefatory clause and an operative clause. It's set up for the most part throughout the Constitution. The right of the people to keep and bear arms. This was not put in by a mistake. It was not part of a militia. The gun control crowd would like to have you believe that, well, no, it was about militias in the beginning. Well, that crowd is in really good company. There's guys like Pol Pot, Mao Zedong, Adolf Hitler, Benito Mussolini, all advocates of gun control. Adolf Hitler once said it is best not to let the subject masses have arms, for they are able to rise up against the power. So, besides that, beyond the realm of an ideological argument, let's play with the statistics for a bit. Often it's argued that the countries such as the United Kingdom, South Africa, Australia, these nations, Brazil, have lower gun crime rates than the United States because they have strict gun control. Well, in most instances, yes, that is correct. However, their violent crime rates far exceed that of the United States. That is a fact. But, no, it's a fact. I'll give you the statistics. You're more than welcome to have them. But, they have it. So, why do they have crime? Well, these criminals enjoy, they want to break they don't care about the law. They're going to break it. They will use whatever tool is available to them, whether it be a knife, it be a gun, it be a club. The United Kingdom has effectively banned knives because the knife crimes are so high. Pocket knife like this, that's a felony in the United Kingdom. So does it really mean that you're going to get lower crime? No, not necessarily by having more gun control laws. But here in the United States, the statistical argument is very strong. States such as California, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, and Illinois experience 27% higher violent crime rates on average. Federal Bureau of Investigation, Department of Justice, and ATF all cite that. That's their statistics if you want your sources. So, they have higher crime rates. Well, why might that be? These states have magazine capacity restrictions, assault weapon bans, gun registration, and mainly restrictive to no concealed weapons laws in states such as Texas, Oklahoma, Florida, Missouri, Nevada, Arizona, and New Mexico, 27% lower violent crime rates. So it comes down to the question, law-abiding citizen should be allowed to have a firearm in their home to protect themselves and protect against a tyrannical government, or an armed aggressor? Yes, they should have it.
I can't speak to the Democratic Party on this issue because there's a range of beliefs within the party itself, ranging from moderate to liberal on how guns should be handled. But I can speak for myself. I think my cohorts will agree with me on this one. We are in less disagreement with you than you think. We agree it's the Second Amendment that people do have the right to bear arms and own guns. I do think that there's a certain line that needs to be drawn. I mean, I don't think we should have assault weapons or RPGs. Or anything like that. And when the Constitution and the Bill of Rights were written, there was only muskets. So they had not foreseen the great power that a weapon could invoke, as we have available to see today. So I agree we should have guns. I think that the higher crime rate in the United States, because there is a higher crime rate in the United States than most other first world countries, it's not attributed to the gun ownership. I think it's attributed to a culture. We have a culture of violence and a culture of fear. We need to change that. But I do agree that banning guns isn't going to solve that problem. So we're not really even too much disagreement. Okay.
Taking a little bit more positive standpoint from the Republicans. First off, President Hillary BBC overruled the handgun ban in Washington, D.C. And the argument that was stated in the opinion is that the preambles cannot negate the operative text. By its own terms, the rationale of the Second Amendment's preamble is not exclusive. The operative right securing the clause is grammatically and logically independent of the preamble. Skilled army or adherence to the Constitution may sufficiently provide the security of a free state, and still the people would enjoy their right to arms. Most critically, the preamble cannot contradict or render the meaningless of the operative text. Petitioners note that preambles are, skip that. Thus, the 10 amendments of the original Constitution were substantially contemporaneous and should be construed with the Patent v. United States 281 U.S. 76, overruled on other grounds, William v. Florida 399 U.S. 78 1970. There should be no distinction among the people protected by the Fourth Amendment and by the First and Second Amendments, and whom rights and powers reserved in the Ninth and Tenth Amendments of the United States will be Verdugo 494 U.S. 259. Conceded that the Second Amendment secures individual rights. Petitioners nonetheless argue that the term bear arms is exclusively military, and the Second Amendment can be exercised only under the direct governmental military organization. The fact is that militias are no shape, way, or form a governmental entity. Militias are a group of rogue people after the government has gone underground who operate and try to uphold the laws of the federal government that has gone underground. That doesn't mean that it's regulated. It's the militia. The militia is a militia. And the Second Amendment, by the fact of banning handguns or anything of that nature, contradicts and creates a paradox within the preamble and the contextual confinement of the actual Second Amendment. Creates a paradox, and therefore it can't do that under constitutional law. So therefore, handguns and any other kind of weaponry other than submachine guns and machine guns, as stated by the United States Supreme Court, are illegal. But handguns and various rifles and whatnot should be legal.
Well, I agree with you on many points. However, the argument that, because, well, we didn't have, as they so-call assault weapons, can anybody here, can you, just real quick, I'm just going to ask a question. Can anybody here define an assault weapon? Specifically, what is an assault weapon?
Automatic weapon, fires rapidly, has...
Illegal since 1934. Try again.
Well, that's what we agree with that.
Well, assault weapons, this is the thing, well, this is where I disagree with, though. The assault weapons, as they're so called, are simply a center-fire semi-automatic weapon that what we do is call an ugly gun. They're banned in the state of California on cosmetic features, such as it has a pistol grip, supposedly because it makes it easier to fire from the hip. Somebody's been watching too many Schwarzenegger movies, whoever wrote that law, because it has a flash suppressor. Well, I've seen flash suppressors and what they do at night. They don't really suppress much flash. They help with recoil a little bit, that's about it. But here's the thing, the main argument that we should not have assault weapons, we should not have handguns, because, well, they didn't really have those things back then, is a similar argument for the First Amendment, saying, well, they didn't have TV, they didn't have internet. We should not, those are not covered under the First Amendment. That is a selective, that is selective choosing of what exactly it is you're going to say is covered under the Constitution. The Constitution of itself, every amendment is documented under strict scrutiny. It's interpreted under that. And that means minimal restrictions upon it. Minimal to protect the populace and restrict against unrest.
Yeah, I don't know why you assume like we agree with you so deeply. We don't disagree. Disagree with you. We don't disagree with you. We agree there should be limits imposed. I mean, realistically, no one needs an RPG. Like no one's going to walk down the street with an RPG. Like we're not. Like let's be honest. None of you agree with us. Like
actually, I do agree on that.
No, I know. I'm saying we don't disagree. And no one needs a tank. You know, like you can't go to a car dealership like to buy a tank. Like you can't. That's a good thing. But the thing to remember is that the Constitution, one of the great things about it is that it's a living document. Is that it can be changed, and it has been changed. And it was written with the intention to change, and it was written at a time for a specific purpose. I mean, it was written. I mean, the militia was the way the American colonists fought off the British. And the important way to do that was to make sure everybody had access to guns. We don't need that anymore. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have it. I'm saying we don't need it. That's it.
When was the last time the United States was invaded? Like full-on invaded, like an army that actually came ashore? 1812. 1812. How many armies and the nations have come and intervened and tried to invade the United States since then? We've got attacked, but we have not been invaded, which is the whole point of the militias and having automatic weapons. and submachine weapons. They're useless. I'm from Texas. I think the idea would be kind of cool. Take a semi-automatic weapon out there and go deer hunting, but it's excessive. You don't need it. The fact of the matter is you don't need it. It's excessive, and therefore the Constitution, as defined by the justices, stands because it is excessive. Nobody needs an assault rifle to fight a burglar. All you need is a .22 shotgun, spray shot, and falling back. That's all you need. A handgun. That and a handgun. The assault rifle is excessive and therefore is illegal. And that has no place in this country.
I do sense a lot of agreement here, and I kind of want to move on to the next topic so that we can save time for quiet Q&A rampage. The last topic is sure to be divisive. ASUCM service budget proposal. Proposed by the Democrats, so I'll let you introduce this at the top.
Okay, so the budget is, I'm sure, I don't know if any of you guys have really read it, but the group that they have started will give you some info about it. But I think what everyone wants to talk about is the hot topic of the HEROES program. And they've specifically attacked the sexual health program. And if you look in the line items of this budget, there was $4,000 that was given by ASUCM, and none of it was used for sexual health program. I'm just introducing it, okay? So, HEROES will provide students with an accurate and current information on a variety of health topics to encourage these students to make informed decisions on their health and connect the students to resources such as medical providers, dietitians, health educators, counselors, and peer organizations. Lastly, the primary focus of HEROES is to create a campus and, more importantly, a community environment that encourages healthy choices among the UCM students. Along with the sexual health program, they have the nutrition and physical activity, they have general health, alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, and then you have the meetings with students one-on-one. So the sexual health program is not the main focus, it's not the core of their program. And next of all.
Yeah, I'll take that. First of all, the HEROES program is a section of the health center. I don't know if you guys know that. We all pay $50 every semester to fund this. And when they advertised for the $50 semesterly health fee, they named HEROES as one of those things that it was going to fund. So the idea that HEROES wants to go to ASUCM and get $4,000, and you're right, this year they didn't go for the alcohol and beverage. They went for the alcohol and beverage thing. But last year, before they came under scrutiny from our publication, The Right Side, and basically us, I guess, we paid $4,000 for them to fund, according to ASUCM, lube and condoms for their National Condom Week. And I don't know if you guys saw the events, but that was basically made up of lube taste tests, sex toy demonstrations, and what else was there? The rubberware party. The year before they had used condoms instead of giving out to students to make a condom dress. I don't know what the purpose of that was. These things have nothing to do with sexual health. They're just people they're getting a budget and they're just using it for fun to get attention. I don't know what it is. And the counselors brought up too, CAPS, Counseling and Psychological Services, offers free counseling to students. They're actually professionals there. They all have degrees in counseling or psychiatry or psychology. What was that? No, I'm saying you said HEROES offers counseling, right?
Yes, they are trained for
okay, I'm saying that instead of giving HEROES, my point is instead of training students who have no health degrees or any sort of degree in psychology, they're getting it. We can send them over to
people that are in HEROES.
Okay, does anyone in HEROES have a medical degree? You have a medical degree? Alright, my point is CAPS, they're professionals. They offer free counseling and psychological services to students who may have relationship problems, who may have trouble allocating time for homework, whatever it may be they want counseling. They can go to CAPS and see professionals, not students who went through a seminar for help. That was my point. Yeah, that's basically it.
So you went to one event, correct?
Yeah, correct. I went to one event.
And I'm pretty sure that I'm pretty sure that when you went to this event, it was the condom one.
that was not a sex and bitch thing.
No, well, you did go to that event, and
Yeah.
you did go to another one where it was how to properly put a condom on, and you didn't know how to do it.
No. Because that event that I went to, no one was there except me.
No,
That's not what I'm talking about.
Who's your source on that issue?
Of Heroes Leaders.
A hero's leader. Who's that hero's leader?
I'm not going to tell
Exactly
you.
my point, because that was not true. That's a false fact, and I'm going to call you on that.
Prove it!
Testify real quick that Ashley on Facebook made it very clear that she loves to rail everything that steps in front of her. Just want to get that out there. I love that. Ashley. Beautiful.
That's like
I can't remember a libertarian. So typically, I've never seen a lot of fun things that happen on campus at night. What happens if you might go home?
For ours, it seems like they go to basically give us to talk about, alleged misallocation of line items. They've been spent, they said they were other than what they were originally voted for. And you were talking about the, I guess, efficacy or use of the programs. If you wouldn't mind, I'd like to give part of our time to, would you mind talking about like defending your programs at least? Because I don't think I can actually talk to both of you because you guys are discussing totally different sides of the issues.
I'm going to address the heroes argument a little bit differently than she did. I'm a little bit more moderate in that I actually agree that it's a little bit excessive how prospects was in a school, a funded school event. That being said, Heroes does provide a lot of educational events and material for people who do need help. I believe that they sponsor alcohol awareness programs, things like that, and these are things that cause deaths amongst college students. And I think it's actually prudent that the school and the people and the students pay to gain knowledge on that because it's directly benefiting all of them. And directing to the other misspendings going on. I don't know too much about it, except for that there's a lot of allocation of funds going to clubs. And I disagree with that, even though Heroes I think is an exception because it's somewhat nonpartisan, and that it's hoping just to help students, and that's it. I do disagree, and this is me, I'm not talking for the Democrats right now. I do disagree with funding religious clubs, funding any kind of partisan club with the money that we put forward the students, because not all of us are religious, not all of us are Republican or Democrat, but I rest.
Sure. All right. Yeah. No one's arguing that sexual health isn't important. I mean, definitely not arguing that. We're arguing that the Hero is wasting money on things like, I don't know, maybe the Democrats can tell me what the educational value of tasting lubricant is. Exactly. It's just fun. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of money is what it is.
She said that very little of the funds allocated to that particular event.
What was that?
What weren't very few of the funds allocated to that particular event?
I don't know because the health center doesn't release their budget under the California Public Records Act.
So you don't know.
Because they won't release their records.
Okay, but you're arguing so that you have no idea what you're talking about.
No, my argument is that they requested last year, this fiscal year, because the public records, ASUCM releases their budgets. ASUCM gave Heroes $4,000. It's a matter of fact, you can go to ASUCM.ucmerced.edu and look at the 2009
on
budget.
the sexual health program.
Yes, it was. It was spent on sexual health programs. I can read you the quote from ASUCM.
The heroes are right there, us there.
It was a line item specifically for it, which means it can only be funded for HIV testing, lubricant tasting, and condoms. That's the only thing that line item
Quoting from the ASUCM website, health promotion, condoms, lubricants, anonymous HIV testing, health center, $4,000.
Libertarians.
I'd like to start and say the argument that even talking about Heroes is so arbitrary. We shouldn't even be discussing this. It's not even important. What's important is how the UC Merced especially gets money and then it puts money into a project, does it not to 100%, and then in turn has to go back and fix what they already spent all that money on. That's what we should be discussing. Michelle Obama, it was just dust last year. And then when Michelle Obama came, they laid down the grass. Then after Michelle Obama left, they were like, oh wait, we spent all that money on that sod and the grass and upkeep, and now we have to
re-dig up the grass, lay down a pipe, lay down a sprinkler system, and then put the sod right back on. That's a waste of allocation right there. The fact that the heroes and the health center are using money for proper condom uses and HIV testing, I think that's important. It is important that the sexual health of the being of these students needs to be addressed. Because it's important to know that if somebody on this campus is HIV positive, it's important for them to know that they're HIV positive so that we don't go out and spread it and create an epidemic. See, because that's so arbitrary, we don't need to be wasting time. We need to be focusing on why is it taking so freaking long for the management building to get done, but the housing down there can get done within less than a year. It's arbitrary, and quite frankly, it's crap.
Well, regarding anonymous HIV testing, passing out prophylactics, proper sexual health that legitimately has an educational value, I don't think you've heard any one of us argue against that. What we're arguing against is allocating funds from the health center last year itself had $170,000 and Heroes was covering that. They need an additional $4,000 so they could take that $4,000 and effectively burn it so they could do a condom dress. The year before that, that was one thing they did. This past year, do lubricant taste testing, a night of sex on the screen, and a sex toy party? What? Big rest of my time with Fincher.
You know, I don't necessarily disagree with Bryant at all. There is a lot of waste that goes on in this campus, and I'm sure each of you see it every day with 3 plasma screen TVs in every classroom. Simple things like that could be scaled down, cut back. I know they do tend to get more expensive TVs, not exactly the cheapest one. The length of time is because it's a concrete constructed building, that's prefab wood construction. A lot different material, cheaper cost, quicker to build. They do have a lot of issues with funding. Like there's not going to be any furniture for the new management building under the budget because we spent that money to put stuff in the library because over time construction costs go up and budgets aren't set in stone, especially when you're doing construction like that. There are a ton of wasteful projects right now going on. For example, they didn't build that field over there right the first time around. So now what they want to do is they want to tear it all up, regrade it, put more sod down. I don't know if any of you saw it, but there were several $1,000s worth of sod after they constructed the Michelle Obama Bowl that they just let rot out in the summer heat and die. They didn't take care of it during the summer, so a lot of it died. They had to go and seed it again. And that's a lot of bull crap that's going on our campus, and I think that's something that we can all agree on is we need to be what United Voice telling the administration, get it done right the first time and stop wasting money. Because this is our student money that we're funding for projects like these. We shouldn't have to pay for it twice over.
Yeah, brief rebuttal from
how much was Heroes? 4,000?
And everything else was thousands
Yeah,
more
the
for
song over there
cash.
has been said probably tens of thousands of dollars because you have to not only put it in the sprinkler system, but you also got to find the water source and put that up. Hold on, let me finish. Let me finish. You have to find the water system, lay down the pipe, and I know, example, the school did use plastic, so they probably use copper, which increases the price even more. If you are truly conservative, focus on the figures. Tens of thousands versus $4,000. What's more important?
Alright, you talked a lot about waste. I think that's something we all definitely agree on. Waste is bad. We shouldn't resolder the field. But okay, yeah, we did. But I mean, didn't you support $40,000 to redo the Lackley Auditorium?
That's something that is needed.
Oh.
It was originally planned to fund that. And then what happened is the school went ahead and built it. Now we have to go back again, of course, and spend more money because they screwed up.
Isn't that wasteful? I mean, shouldn't that money be back into
There is no other place on campus for a musical theater like that. What they are going to be doing is renovating it so it's better sound quality, because right now it's only built for lecture, not symphonies or anything else.
No one's going to use that as a musical theater anyway. You build an entirely new one if you want to.
It won't be in so many years until they get one.
Can I bring something up real quick? The symphony rents it out like every week.
Wow, I didn't realize how fun that topic would be. All right, we'll go ahead and open up to the audience for questions on any of the topics. Across the hand up,
Okay, this isn't so much a formal question to each one of you, but rather an educational session for everyone. Mr. Fincher, Mr. Ziemba, Mr. Elson all had an opportunity to get onto student government. Some have been on student government. And you state line items within the budget that are very vague, yet you do not actually pull out a budget proposal that is still currently in the ASUCM office that details exactly what heroes asked for and what they requested and where the money actually goes to. Next time, find your facts instead of just saying, here's a line item, this is what they spent their money on, and story. Because the Business Society has $1,000 allocated to conference. Conference is vague, but in the budget proposal, it will specify what conference.
Can I respond to that?
No. And I'm going to try to be as kind as possible about this. Breast cancer linked to what? Because as of a couple days ago, they've actually made an incredible advancement in breast cancer and curing breast cancer, and they pretty much cured every form of breast cancer within the medical case by cryology, I believe, where you freeze the tumor. Read up on that. Second of all, your heartbeat. When does a heartbeat actually start? If you guys want to make the argument that it's a living human being, when does the heartbeat start? Exactly, 23 days into development.
Well, then, by that argument, then, we shouldn't tell
However, there was a modification within the embryo heart through the foramen ovale that allows it to skip the ventricles and go straight through the atrium. That means the baby heart cannot actually live on its own. It is not technically beating, only through ion exchange through the nervous system. That's how our heartbeat actually works. Now, if the baby's not technically living because it has no cognitive function, okay? So, and even the interatrial foramen actually is the part between the two atriums. That gets sealed up. Most of the time it doesn't actually. In some cases they have to go in surgically after the baby's born. Second of all, let me finish first. When I finish, if you want to be professional. Thank you. I waited for my chance to raise your hand.
You can set your ass down over there and debate that.
Is 50% of a mother, 50% of a father, and sometimes could be possibly 2/3 of a mother in the case of Klinefelters. And don't tie into science facts, especially if you're not a biologist, and they currently make an argument saying it's emotional. And that, okay, now I'm taking questions.
Than you did environmental information like I made you my bitch 2 months ago.
Stanford and currently
I'm sorry, please, BA's worth nothing, it's a BS.
Okay, then it's a BS from Stanford, yet you still believe in global warming, and now you're working in mercury studies, so you're not actually working briefly.
Okay, and then let's try to pick a question.
It'd be great if I could get access to the documents, but the court won't unlock the cabinet in ASUCM.
Have you asked them?
Okay, no.
Because I asked
Why aren't the documents online? And don't you yourself have a bill up right now asking ASUCM for cigars for your club?
No, I do not. That's actually a budget proposal. It's a joke from the comedy newspaper taking
Oh, it's a joke.
You actually laughed and said, hey, I'll support it if I can get some.
as a joke.
There's a difference between putting something in the budget and then saying it's a joke versus saying something out loud. That's if the budget proposal says that you guys are getting money for cigars, then you guys are getting money for cigars. That's what it says.
And there's a very big difference between you know something and
my question is of kindergarten proportions, but I'd like to ask it, and anybody who's up there can answer this. How many undergraduate students currently attend this university?
I got that. It's 3,000. Give me a second here.
All right, we'll round it to 3,000.
It's 3,414.
Okay. How much money did from ASUCM student fees went to the Heroes program? $4,000?
Yes.
So we're literally bitching about under $1.50.
No, actually,
wait. So like what I'd like to say is, I have lost more money in a Coke machine this year. Bryant addressed it earlier when he said there were bigger wastes. Like clubs that I'm in made a bigger waste of your student fees. Just per student per dollar. And I like how we've selected the barely $1.50 mark per student at a big fucking waste. Like that. It's a big fucking waste mark. So
I'd like to point out that our club did not choose a topic. We didn't think it was worth debating. That was the Democratic Club. Also, we wanted to talk about the service budget proposals, which include wasting like $200,000 for a bike kiosk by the.
Which I agree with.
Okay, so we wanted to talk about that. You specifically said in the beginning, I don't think you guys want to hear about that. I think the big thing is Heroes. That was your topic. You guys chose where you wanted to go with
well,
it.
Well, if you personally attack me, then yeah, I'm going to want to talk about it.
No, I didn't attack you. You were just saying
you made a freaking video about it on YouTube. Wow. You personally attacked me, said I want to rail everything that comes in front of me. Yeah, okay, that's my personal attack.
Sexual attraction going on. We did have a hand up in front, and I think it might actually be a question.
Actually, well, I have a question. Well, it's more of a clarification. Earlier they stated that Heroes are trained counselors. Yes, we do have CAP services, but actually when we do peer, like our peer one-on-ones, I'm a hero. Our main service isn't to actually solve students' problems or to counsel them or to give them therapy. It's to refer them to CAPs. Just wanted to clarify that so that those services are used. Because there are a lot of students that don't actually know where to go for their certain issues.
Okay, so we're spending money on Heroes to tell them where to go?
Yes, because a
instead
lot
of
of
making a sign maybe that says CAPS free psychological counseling and psychological services, we spend thousands of dollars. That was confidentiality. We spent that wasn't the
Sorry, we all can't afford to have like our own private site from our daddies.
What?
By posting a big sign saying, hey, go here, that's inviting to everybody to look up and see who's walking in. By going out and finding an individual, that protects a patient's confidentiality. That's what we're talking about here. And quite frankly, I'm proud that I'm spending $1.50
analogy, everyone would be willing to pitch in 50 cents by force as a fee to get college Republicans to bring speakers here on campus?
Hello.
That's exactly my
There's a serious difference between Colorado coming to speak at this school, partisan
$26,000 in your budget
versus
for
a
that.
non-partisan group who's trying to promote
Michelle Obama, Jimmy Carter,
and the socialist candidate.
What difference
Stand up.
No statement. How did this happen? Sorry.
I don't know how long ago it was.
The bottom of the barrel. Question is that. Question is that.
Yeah, I'm just embarrassed that we're all getting the same degree at the end of the day. So.
All right, last chance for a question and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah. Okay. Do you guys think that abortion is unconstitutional?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So, given that abortions did exist during the making of the Constitution, and then I guess I'm wondering, if the founders meant it to be applied to the unborn as well, why didn't they include this? And also, given that no subsequent amendments have explicitly outlawed abortions or protected unborn life in any way, and also given that no Supreme Court decisions has done the same, is it either a lie to say that abortion is unconstitutional or simply a delusion that you know the Constitution better than all?
It's not up to the states to decide that.
That's what the 10th Amendment's for.
What?
The 10th Amendment's for. Both different states.
But how does that make it unconstitutional?
Can you restate your question?
For it to be federally regulated, mandated, or controlled is unconstitutional. It is not a decision left up to the federal government. It's a decision left up to the states. Therefore, it is unconstitutional that the Supreme Court decided upon Roe v. Wade.
Okay, so you're debating the constitutionality of Roe v. Wade.
Yes. Because it's not a federal issue. Federal issue is limited to the amendments within the United States Constitution and also...
Okay, but don't states on an individual basis more or less regulate abortion?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
But the Supreme Court, outlaw abortion, so they made it a federal issue.
Which is unconstitutional.
Well, it's because of the 10th Amendment, which says that any powers not allocated are given to the states. What was that?
All right, and that was a moment of quiet. Why don't we go ahead and wrap up there and you can talk amongst yourselves. I would like to take a moment and sincerely thank everybody for coming up.
And
we all procured club funds to buy.
That'll last about a week and a half. Thank you all. Really, pleasure to be able to have a free-flowing exchange by you. So I hope you got something.